Hi everyone, you're listening to another episode of Coffee, Jeans, and Jesus, a podcast for truth and encouragement. My name is Micaela and I'm so happy that you've decided to join me. Whatever brought you across this podcast episode, just know that I appreciate you and I'm so thankful for you. Have you ever gone through a really difficult time in your life and all you could do was ask God, "What are you doing, God?" Have you gone through a very painful season of life and asked God, "What is going on?" On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about when we go through seasons of pruning. Stay tuned. Hi everyone, it's Micaela. I'm so glad that you came back this week to spend some time with me. If this is your first time listening, welcome to the podcast. This is a podcast for women of all ages to be encouraged, to be reminded that you're worthy and you have a purpose. And this is a safe space. I share my own stories and my own journey with God on here. I also like to share Bible verses because I believe that biblical truth really helps mold us and just helps us to kind of have a new perspective. And so I just love reading the word and sharing the word because I think that through it we are captivated and it's just amazing. And that's a very important part of my life. And so if you didn't get a chance to listen to last week's episode, I had Carissa Lynn on. She's amazing. She was just sharing her heart about how she struggled with her own identity, but also she was sharing the importance of young girls and young women truly understanding their identity. And so if you haven't heard that episode, it's very encouraging. I think that you'll enjoy it. And I hope that you share it with someone who needs some encouragement in their life. Well, today we're going to be talking about pruning. So if you garden, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I wanted to talk about it in terms of just when we are going through difficult times, right? We're going through a difficult season, a problem, a trial in our life, or we're struggling with the same thing over and over, right? Either it could be your temper, you're impatient, whatever it is that you tell yourself, man, I keep struggling with the same thing over and over. Why? And the other thing is when you may have had friends, a friend, or like a group of friends that you were always hanging out with or spending time with. And I know it might be a little different because of the quarantine and everything that has happened. So everything changed for everyone. I understand that. But like maybe your friends were hanging out on Zoom, right? Or FaceTiming or Facebook Messenger. And you kind of notice that like, man, this person is like not reaching out to me anymore. They're not answering my calls. And you're maybe asking yourself like, what did I do to them or what's wrong with me? Why don't they want to talk to me anymore? Well, those things that I just mentioned, I really believe that they have something to do with pruning, when God prunes us. And so let's kind of get into that, okay? So when I looked up the definition of pruning, it says to trim by cutting away dead or overgrown branches or stems, especially to increase fruitfulness and growth. It also says to remove unwanted parts from something. And now this is speaking in terms of a shrub or a bush or a tree. However, I found it very interesting that the word fruitfulness was mentioned. Okay? I'm going to read to you a verse. It's John 15:2, and it says, He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, He prunes. So, isn't that interesting that at the end of that verse, you hear, while every branch that does bear fruit, He prunes. And now when we read the definition, it says, uh, cutting away dead or overgrown branches, especially to increase fruitfulness and growth. So I just found it so interesting that here in the scripture, it's amazing because God is truly a creator. And you read in Genesis how, he created the plants and he told Adam and Eve to be fruitful. And so there's something about God and the way that he designs things and the way that he gives everything a purpose, right? And so there is a purpose through your difficult season. I don't know what you're going through. Whatever you're going through, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. I'm here for you. I'd be happy to pray for you. I love to pray for other people. But whatever you're going through, that difficult season, that problem that just seems so big, that mountain that just doesn't want to move, I believe that through it, God has a purpose. And if you're struggling with the same thing over and over, you keep kind of hitting a wall, you keep going through the same thing. Maybe it's something in your marriage. Maybe you're really impatient. Maybe you just, can't seem to get past something, right? I believe that if you're encountering that same thing over and over, your temper, your impatient, whatever that thing is, you keep facing that same thing, because when you keep facing that same thing, each time you face it, you're going to learn how to overcome it easier. And so through that, I believe that God is pruning you. Now let's talk about people. Many times we want to hold on to people. Maybe it's people that you were in ministry with. Maybe it's people that you used to work with. Maybe it's people that used to be your friend. Maybe it's someone that you used to date. Let's be honest here. And these people, this person, it doesn't seem like you guys are meshing anymore. You're not connecting anymore. And you think that you're the problem. Well, you see, I believe that through that God is pruning you too. Because when we read the definition of pruning, it says that it means to trim by cutting away dead or overgrown branches or stems, especially to increase fruitfulness and growth. So if this is talking about overgrown branches, and in the word of God we see, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes. Is it possible that he's pruning you? And by pruning you, he's taking away these people that maybe are not meant to be in the next season of your life because perhaps you've overgrown them, right? Maybe wherever God is taking you next in the next season, these people, for whatever reason, they're just not meant to be part of your season. And it doesn't mean that they're bad people. They could be very good people. But it just means that wherever you're going, whatever your purpose is, whatever God has planned for you next, they're just not meant to be there. And you have to be okay with that, because that means that you overgrew them. You outgrew them. And if you're a mother, you know that kids, they grow so fast. You have to buy them clothes all the time, it seems like. You're not going to put an 11-year-old in clothes for a 3-year-old, right? That would be silly. And in the same way, if you're outgrowing those people, whether they're very, very good people, well, girl, it's time to move on. And you're going to have to be okay if you're going through a season of isolation. You're going to have to trust that God, he knows what he's doing, because what God has already prepared for you, he knows best. And when you get to that season, it's going to make sense. Now, the thing that you keep struggling with, whatever that thing is, well, we see here that it says he cuts away what's dead. So maybe he's trying to prune that part so that it will bear fruit, so that it will increase in fruitfulness. And because that part is dying inside of you, he's trying to remove it. We see here it says to remove unwanted parts from something. That part is not something that's going to bring him glory. And then for your next season of life, it cannot be something that you still struggle with. And I know that this sounds a little bit harsh, but I'm saying it because I've been there. I've tried to hold on to people that were no longer supposed to be part of the next season of my life. And I've struggled with the same thing over and over. You see, so I get it because I've been there. And so the other thing was, if you're going through a difficult season, let me tell you, as hard as it is, when you see that God has brought you out of that into the next season, and you can look back on that, you grew. He pruned you. He pruned you. And now you can be fruitful. And in that area where you were struggling, in that area where you experienced much difficulty, God's going to use you. And that could be that you made a mistake and that you sinned. Or that you sinned. Don't think that God can't use you. Don't think that you're disqualified. Because God is a God of many chances. Right? When I was younger, I played softball. So if I remember correctly, it's 3 strikes and you're out, right? That's not who God is. You don't have 3 strikes and you're out. He gives you chance after chance after chance to go up again and bat. And guess what? Sometimes you are going to strike out. But when you finally hit that ball, God is going to show you that he was there all along, and you're going to see that, wow, God, you moved in my life. And the thing, wow, like, okay, has this ever happened to you? Maybe you're at the store and someone has an attitude with you and you want to check them, especially if I grew up in the hood. So, you want to check them. I don't know if anyone is hearing me on this, but you don't let anybody, talk down to you or push you around. But instead of giving in and snapping on them, you smile and you're kind. And when you leave the store or wherever you were, you smile because you say, wow, I can't believe I was nice to that person even though they were a jerk. Well, guess what? That's when you see the pruning, the fruit. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And so I just wanted to encourage you, because whatever you are going through and whatever you've messed up at, you're not done. Okay? You still have a chance, because God has a purpose for you. You see, in Romans 8:28, it says that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. So in all things, it doesn't say, oh, just in the good things or just in the bad things. It says that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. So no matter what you've gone through or what mistake you've made, God still has a purpose for you. And I've said this before, but when people try to make you feel bad because you messed up, you know what? You have to know that God is going to use that, because God is a God who uses what is intended for evil. He uses it for good. And when you meet someone who acts like they got it all together, let me tell you, none of us have it all together. None of us have arrived. We're all still trying to figure it out. We're all still striving each day to walk humbly like Christ, but none of us have arrived. And so I just wanted to encourage you today, to remind you that you're worthy and you have a purpose, and that whatever you're going through today, whatever you're struggling with, and whoever seems to like not want to be there anymore for you, you got to know that God is pruning you, that he's taking you to a new season, and he's preparing you through the pruning. But guess what? Sometimes it's difficult, uncomfortable, and it hurts. But in order for you to grow, you have to step out of your comfort zone. And so I hope that you all were encouraged. If you'd like to contact me, you can reach me on Instagram. I'm at Coffee Jeans and Jesus, A-N-D. It's spelled A-N-D, Coffee Jeans and Jesus. And you can also subscribe on coffeejeansjesus.com. You can read some of my blogs on there, and you can also subscribe to my prayer list. And so I hope that you all were encouraged. I hope that you will share this episode with someone who needs encouragement. And thank you so much for being here. I will talk to you next week.